and to celebrate that crazy thing we do, which is write books. And so because this is for you to get the most of what Vinita brings to you in her extremely sparky style. So whether she's talking about something that is grim, whether she's talking about something that is contemporary, whether she's talking about something that is emotional, she will bring to it a particular characteristic that I will now herefore christen as Coelho-esque. And therefore, may I ask you to share some of that so that all of you in the audience, some of you may be familiar with her work, those who are not will get a taste of it, and then we will talk a little bit about how she creates this particular brand of magic.
So good morning, everyone. I have to tell you, I'm so excited to be here. I grew up in Calcutta, and we used to come for picnics to Victoria Memorial, and we used to wander around wide-eyed, and here I am on a stage at Victoria Memorial. Very exciting. Okay, so we were doing Dark Tales, which we will, but since this is such a tiny audience, I mean a young audience, I am going to actually read for you from a book called Dungeon Tales, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down there so that we can do this in style. So good morning, everyone. You haven't had breakfast. Let's hear that again. Good morning, everyone. Ha! My name is, who knows my name? What's my surname? Coelho. My name is Vinita Coelho. I come from Goa. And as you know, the Goa was colonized by the Portuguese. It wasn't the British. And what the Portuguese did when they came in was they tended to convert villages to Christianity. And every village they converted, they'd give them a surname. And the surname was always the name of an animal. So Coelho is an animal. What animal am I? Who wants to guess what animal am I? What animal am I? Come on. Koala, I'm not a koala. I'm a koel, I'm not a koel. Am I a coyote? I wish I was, but I'm not a coyote. No more guesses? That's it? Okay, I'll give you a hint. I'm soft and white and fluffy. Who am I? I'm a rabbit. Coelho unfortunately means rabbit. I was hoping for something like tiger, but it's rabbit. So my name is Vinita Coelho. And I'm going to read you a story from a book called Dungeon Tales. You know what a dungeon tale is? Dungeon is? Yep. What's a dungeon? Who's going to tell me what a dungeon is? Absolutely right. It's a prison in the basement of a castle, and it's dark, and it's scary, and it's got spiders, and it's wet, and you don't want to be stuck in a dungeon. But I'm going to read you some stories about a whole bunch of people who were stuck in a dungeon, and they were put there by a guy called the Badmash Badshah. And he was a very badmash. He was so badmash that he'd actually stolen the kingdom. The kingdom belonged to his brother, but he took his brother and he took over. And in that kingdom, if you spoke up at the wrong time, you were put in the dungeon. If you said the wrong thing, you were put in a dungeon. If you sneezed on a Tuesday, you were put in a dungeon. If you didn't brush your teeth, anyone here hasn't brushed their teeth? Oh, you're in big trouble because you're going in the dungeon. And people were arrested and put in the dungeon and put in the dungeon until the dungeon was absolutely full. And when the dungeon was absolutely full, the Badmash Badshah couldn't sleep. Why couldn't he sleep? Because everyone was yelling so much, help, save us, get me out of this dungeon, mummy, bachao. So he was awake for one day, then he was awake for 1 week, and then he was awake for 1 month, and then they started calling in doctors and magicians, and they gave him lotions, and they gave him potions, and the Badmash Badshah was still wide awake. Finally, someone had a really good idea. The jailer came up from the dungeon and said, Badmash Badshah, all these nonsense fellows simply making noise, keeping you awake whole night. I have a very good idea. You like stories? Badmash Badshah, oh yes, I love stories. Every night you call one fellow up, he will tell story. Badmash Badshah said, what a wonderful idea. And so they began. Every night one person was called up from the dungeon and they told a story. The story I'm going to read to you is called A Man with No Name. Everyone here has a name? You sure? Mama, Papa remember to give you a name? They didn't? No? They forgot? Okay, who is going to tell me their name and what it means? Both things. You have to tell me your name and what it means. Tell me.
My name is Izara and its meaning is star.
Ooh, Izara, star.
My name is Roy, and it means I actually don't know what it means.
Go back and ask Mama, Papa. They always choose names very carefully.
My name is Amara and it means bravery.
Oh, nice.
Well, my name is Anka and it means one who is born from an uncle.
One who's born from an uncle. Wow, I see a hand up there.
My name is Adiraj and it means king.
Oh, we have a king here. Oh, one more. What happened to you, darling? Quickly tell me your name.
Ahana Kataruka.
Hannah. Okay, so if everyone has a name, we will now read a story called A Man with No Name. Are you ready? Okay. Oh, wrong spectacles. Sorry, darling, I need my spectacles there. Yes. When you get older, that is the thing. Yeah. As you get older, you need spectacles. Okay, we now have the right spectacles. We're ready. And who do we have today? Asked the Badmash Badshah. I don't know, Your Highness, said jailer. Very stupid fellow. Refuses to give his name, says he doesn't have a name. Nonsense, said the Badmash Badshah. Everybody has a name, a surname, a nickname, a pet name. Take me, for example. I've got dozens. My real name is Badshah Alam Zabardast Kasai Dhulelal Sikandar Nusrat Fateh Ali Cuddles Hajami. Cuddles, said the Prime Minister. My mother used to call me that, said the Badmash Badshah. I too once had a name my mother called me, said the prisoner. How I lost it is a long story. Oh, go ahead, said the Badmash Badshah. We have all night. My mother and I lived in Jumri Talaya, Your Highness. My father had died when I was very young and we were very poor. I don't remember him too well. In fact, I don't remember anything too well. In fact, I have a very bad memory. In fact, I can't tell you my name because I've forgotten what it is. Forgotten your name, said the Badmash Badshah. Surely your mother remembers what it is. Well, she's forgotten also. That's the story I have to tell you. I better tell it quickly before I forget. This is a story that the man told. He said, my father was the village dhobi. When he died, my mother took over. She washed the clothes and I delivered them. Normally, I delivered them in the morning. Rest of the day, I had to try and remember who I gave what to because I would always forget. But we were happy, Your Highness, until the day the letter arrived. I remember the day so clearly. I just returned after delivering the Havaldar's uniform to him. It had gone to the Maulvi by mistake, and I couldn't remember where the Maulvi's Achkan had gone. But when the postman came cycling up the road, I was very happy because he was wearing the train conductor's shirt. Of course, Mother and I forgot all about clothes when we read the letter. It said, I am coming for a visit. Keep everything ready. It was signed, Megha Balele Aguntunkinki Maga. In small letters at the bottom, it says, Elias, your brother Munna. Son, cried Mother, do you remember your uncle? No, I said. I was having enough trouble remembering who I'd given the milkman's pajamas to. There was a PS that said, I am now rich and successful. And there was a PPS that said, I am filthy rich actually. Mother said, darling, you were just a tiny boy when he went off to seek his fame and fortune in Africa. Well, apparently he's found it. And he's coming to visit us. Do you know what that means? I didn't. Actually, I'd forgotten what we were talking about. Uncle, visit, money, said Mama. Presents, rich, end of all our problems. Quick, let's make his visit a successful one. Oh, there was never such cleaning as you ever saw as was done in a house. There was cleaning and scrubbing, and just before Uncle arrived, Mother took me aside. She said, now, darling, your uncle is an extremely hot-tempered man. At least he used to be, and I don't suppose he's changed. Be careful not to offend him in any way. I promised I wouldn't forget. But Uncle's arrival was enough to make anybody forget anything. The first we knew of it was when all the neighborhood dogs for miles started howling out. Ooh. Our dog shot out of the back door with his tail between his legs. We went to the door and there down the road was coming a procession like Jumri Talaya had never seen. There were elephants and tumblers doing 17 somersaults at one go. There were fire swallowers swallowing buckets of purple flame. There were headhunters as black as night and 7 feet tall. There was a whole troop of pygmies who grinned and brandished spears. And last of all came Uncle, with a purple parrot on his shoulder, leading a leopard on a leash that was studded with rubies. Sister, said Uncle, I have been longing for just this, a quiet little family reunion. Mother looked at the elephants and the tumblers and the jugglers and said, quite. Just my little following, do they bother you? Well, said Mother, I don't think we have space enough to keep them all. No problem, said Uncle, and he snapped his fingers and whoosh, they all disappeared. Oh, said Mother, what happened? I am, said Uncle. I am, sister, now a most famous magician. Oh, said Mother, how nice. I'm so happy for you, Munna. Munna, said Uncle. And suddenly his beard turned a peculiar shade of blue. My name is Megabalele Aguntung Kinki Maga. It would do you well to remember it. Do you remember it? You better remember it, is what I say. It wasn't for the last 30 years, said Mother. Ah, said Uncle, but now I'm a famous magician. You can't expect me to be called Munna. So this is my nephew, not very smart looking. I bowed and smiled as the leopard rubbed against my knees. Kitty, I said, a nice kitty. Uncle's beard suddenly turned a horrible shade of yellow. He is not a nice kitty. His name is Zabimba. It would do you good to remember it. And the parrot is called Ooga Mooga Mamishi. It would do you well to remember it. Do you remember it? What's the parrot's name? Ah, you're in trouble. Who remembers the leopard's name? Close. Very good, very good. Who remembers the uncle's name? Oh my goodness, you're all going in the dungeon. I had a plan. Every time Uncle said, remember, I held up my hand and with a pencil I wrote it on the cuff of my shirt. This time I wasn't going to get caught for forgetting. Why don't we go into the house and eat something? Said Mother. And we all went into the house and had the strangest meal I've had in my life. Uncle looked at the table and then snapped his fingers and whoosh, was covered with the most fantastic food from end to end. Every dish that he looked at rose up and floated across obediently to him. And the parrot sang the latest hit songs from the bazaar of Timbuktu. When dinner was over, I rose up and I escorted Uncle out of the room. This way, Uncle, I said. Uncle, he said. And his beard turned a horrible shade of purple. Not Uncle, what is my name? I changed into a clean shirt for dinner. There was absolutely nothing written on my cuff. Well, said Uncle, I'm waiting. This way, Magantunkiki Naka Naka, he said. What did you say, said Uncle? And his beard turned an ominous shade of puce. I meant, of course, he said. I said, Makanaka Gogo. What, said Uncle, and his beard changed hair by hair to crimson, which is another way of saying Mana Nana Gambolo Gambolo. Insult upon insult and then injury, said Uncle. Ah, you rude and audacious boy, you've forgotten my name. May you forget your own name and never remember it. He snapped his fingers and whoosh, my name was gone. It went clean out of my head. I scratched my head, I stood on one leg, I ran around in circles, but it didn't come back. I went to Mother and said, Mother, don't you know me? Of course I know you anywhere, my dear son. You're my precious boy, what you call him? Mother, I said, at least remember my nickname. Of course I do, said Mother. My dearest Sniffles, Gontu, Shona, Bulbul, Dhakkan, Garbal Jhala. Oh, it's no use, I said and broke into loud wails. We will find your name, said Mother, and she went to Uncle and said, Munna. Munna, said Uncle, you dare call me Munna? So of course I dare. I've been smacking your bottom from the time you were little. I wish I'd smacked it a bit more. Give my son his name back. Oh, I can't give it back so easily. I'm a magician. Think of what it'll do to my reputation. Think of what it'll do to my son, said Mother. All right, said Uncle, I'll give you a hint. And if he figures his name out, I'll come back and I'll reward you. Mother quickly found a pen and paper and said, write it all down, write it all down. This is the hint that the uncle gave, and you have to help me because it's a poem and every line is one letter of the alphabet. Are you ready to help me solve it? All right. My first is in Krishna and also in Kans. K. My second is in Angan and Andhera and Hans. I'll not and never give you my third. N. My fourth is in hiding. Haven't you heard? You'll find the next letter in always. A. I think what I can see what the next letter says. I. Why? Just answer completely. Why? And put the first alphabet last to end it all neatly. What's his name? Who do we call Kanhaiya? Krishna has been named after Krishna, but of course he's an idiot, so he doesn't remember. Oh, that's as bad as no hint at all, I said. But mother was busy packing my suitcase. She handed it to me and said, son, go out into the world and find someone who can help you get your name back. I said, all right. She says, goodbye. Goodbye, my dearest. Bye-bye, my precious. And so I left home, and I wandered and asked for my name. And when I came to this kingdom and I started asking questions, they threw me in the dungeon. Threw you in the dungeon, said the Badmash Bacha. All you have to do is solve the puzzle. I said, yes, you don't remember your name? No, I'll help you remember it. The Badmash Bacha snapped his fingers, and the chief torturer stepped forward. You know what a torturer is? He's got big muscles, and he pinches you and tortures you until you give the right answers. I hope you have no teachers like that, right? Okay. So chief torturer stepped forward. He produced a whip, and he started asking. Now you have to help me. If the name is wrong, you have to yell no. If it's right, you have to yell yes, okay? Chief torturer said, all right, spell it. Is your name soda water bottle opener wala? Is it Mulchand Raichand Gigi boy? Is it Ram Pyare? Hasmukh Rai? Karodimal? Shabzade Ali Sahib Pataudi? Skuru wala? Latkan Tappu? Gadbad Jhala? Me too dictaphers? No, said the man with no name. A tough nut, said the chief torturer, and he produced a hammer. The man with no name started trembling. If I might interrupt, said the jailer, it might be simpler to solve the rhyme only. Oh, all right, said the Badmash Bacha, and all the courtiers started guessing. Is your name Tuktuki? Minmini? Is it Ahana? Is it Adiraj? Is it Pappu? Is it Devjani? Is it Anushka? Is it Sampurna? The jailer put up his hand. I know what the name is. His name is Kanhaiya. Yes, said the boy. Kanhaiya, that's my name. Oh, well done, said the Badmash Bacha. Another happy ending. Thank you, said Kanhaiya. At last I can go back to my mother. Thank you, And he stopped. A very frightened look came over his face. What has he forgotten? Forgotten the name of the Badmash Bacha. What happens when you forget the Badmash Bacha's name? You got straight in the dungeon. Oh, but Kanhaiya didn't wait. He ran down the corridor, jumped out of the window, and didn't stop running until he was safe home with his mother. Thank you. Okay, now we'll answer questions. And I have to tell you, I want questions from the audience as well, because we have a few books to give away. The youngest to ask a question gets a book, and the oldest to ask a question gets a book, okay? But we'll do a bit of chatting about where you started writing, etc. I'll tell my Calcutta stories.
You know, I have been at many lit fests. And I don't think I've ever had this much fun, especially when you're moderating or you're in conversation, you're always very tense. But today I was sitting and listening to you and it was magic, okay? Don't tell me I didn't warn you all. How do we move from that to this? I want to begin with a question which I was thinking of while you were doing that amazing performance of the book, is that are these books also available as audiobooks? Because I cannot imagine them now divorced from the voice.
Not yet.
They should
Not
be.
yet. I'm hoping Audible wakes up and discovers that I exist, but not yet.
No. They have to be. You have to do it yourself if necessary. Because imagine this. I was looking at everybody. Like when you're sitting there, you can't see, you know. It's just astonishing. So first, thanks for that. And, you know, I wanted to ask, because I know that you're, I think, one of those people who are multi-talented. Okay, so you function across a vast array of things that you do, genres that you explore, etc. So I really want to ask you, how did this begin? How did this particular adventure of writing stories for younger people, how did that start?
I think it started right here. We used to live in Calcutta, and at that time, Calcutta used to have massive power cuts. 8 hours, no power, 9 hours, no power. Now, in our house, every time the power went off, there'd be knocks on the door. Tuck, tuck, tuck. We'd open the door, and all the neighborhood kids would be standing outside because my mom was a fabulous storyteller. And she told ghost stories. She'd light one candle, and then she'd tell us these terrifying ghost stories. And we start up all sitting like far away, and we get closer and closer, and then we'd all be holding her because we were petrified. And I just thought, this is something I want to do. I want to scare people to death. I want to entertain them. I want to do things. And in fact, my fascination with horror has remained. So this session was supposed to originally be about Dark Tales, which is a collection of horror stories, but they're for much older readers. But yeah, I started being a writer, and then I never stopped. But you know, I must say, I don't call myself a writer. I call myself a storyteller. Because I've worked in so many mediums. I tell stories when I do television, I tell stories when I do film. Even when I paint, I'm telling stories. So I'm fundamentally a storyteller who happens to also write books.
Wow. Because, you know, I've seen also that you inhabit your words. Like, you know, there's something when you say a theatre person is enacting a piece, okay? There is a different way in which they enter that and they make it theirs or they don't make it theirs. But because you have this thing where you're entering now, a lot of it clicks into place because I can see that it's a kind of inheritance which you've kind of taken and sort of run away with, literally. So, question about, I was thinking about even this story, this concept of your life depending on a story you might tell. Like even in this one, for example, they are summoned from the dungeon. If you can entertain the Badshah, and that goes back to the Arabian Nights.
You know, it's very deliberate actually. So Western storytelling is, you know, beginning, middle and end. And I got a little bored with it. And I loved stories like the Arabian Tales and 1001 Nights, where you tell a story which leads you to another story, which leads you to another story. So this is very deliberately structured that way. So one story leads to another and another and another. And it's a very particularly Eastern Indian style of storytelling. So I wanted to experiment with that. And I must say that Dungeon Tales particularly is also a homage to my mother. Many of the stories in here are stories that she told us. They're reworking of traditional tales. You know, so I kind of made them a bit funnier and updated them, but that's her book. That's really her book.
So lovely because, you know, this, where do we place ourselves in the tradition? Like in our session, we were talking about where we trace the beginning of this lineage. Here it's this ancestry, and it's always very, it really irritates me, like it must have irritated you, that this idea that there should be a linear movement. Whereas we believe in spiral, circularity, box within box, and I just love the way you unboxed it for us, literally, like a kind of enchantment, a verbal enchantment, really.
Yes, but that's what stories are. I mean, originally verbal enchantments and now reading enchantments, but always enchantments. I don't think the book will ever die, and I think that for a very simple reason. When you go to see a movie or anything visual, and I know kids are a lot on their screens, but that's all pre-digested. When they show you a dragon, you see it. You see the nails, you see the color, you see everything. But when you read a book, you take yourself to the book. The book has to enter your imaginative world. When it says dragon, you are building the dragon in your head. When there's something scary, you meet it with the fear inside you. And therefore, a book is the ultimate interactive experience. It really is. And I don't think any medium will ever give you that experience because the reader makes the book. Until someone opens the book and reads, it's a bunch of words on a page. It's like a musical score. Until a musician plays it, it means nothing. Until a reader reads a book, it means nothing. But when it means something inside the reader as well. So books are very powerful. I don't think they're going anywhere. I'm quite optimistic about the future of books.
That's so nice because, and I'm loving it that we already have questions because we want to make room for as many questions. Will someone take her a mic, please? Because this should be just as unconventional and interactive as the reading was.
Yeah, and please feel free to ask any questions. You can ask about my life. You can ask about my dogs. You can ask about whatever you like.
Maybe you can speed reach a microphone to the young person?
Yeah. Hello? Can you hear?
Yeah.
How does a person get out from a dungeon?
In this book, you have to tell a very good story. If you like, he likes the story, then Badmash Basha snaps his fingers and says, "You may go." But there's a larger story. It tells across all the many stories that are told. There's the story of how the Badmash Bacha is finally defeated, and he's defeated by a clever little girl. So you should read the book.
There's a question here. Yeah. We'll take this one in the front row.
Yes. So my question was, how do you get ideas for the names and like the description of the characters? Because I'm a writer myself, and I find it very difficult to build my characters and then kind of make them cohesive with each other.
Okay, I have to tell you, not a single name in that story is made up. They're all real names. Every single name in there. Shahzade Ali Sahib Pataudi is Saif Ali Khan, the film star. That's his real name. Screwwala is Ronnie Screwwala, one of the most powerful people in films and television. So none of them are made up. And this is the thing that I say. Nothing a writer can make up matches real life. Real life is amazing. The stories that are out there. So I really, when you're a young writer, my suggestion to you is go out and live. You have to go out and live. Unless you have a certain amount of living and experience under your belt, you will write stories that are not very rich. The real texture of a story comes from living, and living includes going out and breaking a heart, getting rejected, feeling sad, feeling happy, having adventures. You must live the whole spectrum of emotion to be able to write about it. We have a hand up there.
Ma'am, I don't understand. Well, I do. But I want to become an author when I grow up. How to do that?
I think she just answered that. She said live.
Huh.
If you live a little, if you love a lot, and you do all those crazy things, adventures, breaking your heart, eating till you're sick, wishing you hadn't eaten all the Golgappas, running away and turning somersaults instead of listening to two writers talking, all of it.
I'd add to that, there's one more thing. You should read. You know, don't read like homework. Unfortunately, in schools, teachers tell children, read because your grammar will improve, your English will improve. Please don't do that. Read because you're having a good time. And every book you read opens a door to another place. You know, a person who hasn't read lives one life. A person who reads lives 1,000 lives. You want to be an undersea diver? Open a book, you can. You want to go to the moon? Open a book, you can. You want to go back in time? Open a book, you can. So reading opens up the world to you. It enriches your world. And with every book that you read, you're subconsciously learning how to write. And especially the books you hate teach you the most about writing. You sit down to write and say, I'm not going to do that. That was very boring. So read a lot. Read the books you don't like and read the books that you like and figure out eventually what you want to do.
Superb advice, okay, for adults, youngsters, across the board. Superb advice. Yeah, who's next?
Yeah, I have a question. This is about the horror stories you're writing. Who are some of your favorite Indian horror story authors?
Oh, that is not a good question. There's an author called Indra Das who has done an absolutely amazing book. You like Indra Das? I can't remember. What's the name of the book? The Devourers. What a book! I mean, I'm amazed he's not won like a ton load of prizes. Otherwise, I really feel that a lot of the horror writing in India is in its infancy. And it borrows a lot from television and the Ramsay brothers. So the only kind of horror they're trying to do is the boo horror, where they scare you. You know, somebody jumps out and go boo. You know, they show you something ugly and it's scary. That's not horror. Horror is when you sneakily get inside the head of someone and you get them to match their fear to your fears. So, you know, my book, Dark Tales, I'm going to take 2 minutes to talk about it. Sit down, darling. You don't have to stand. So when I sat down to write Dark Tales, I said, I want to scare the whole of India. How do I scare the whole of India? So there's one very simple way to do it. The headlines in India are really scary. So I took the Nirbhaya case, I took the Uphaar cinema case, I took the Nithari case, and I took all of these terrible things that happen in India on a daily basis, and I added the supernatural to them. So hopefully this is a very scary book.
You know, since we're talking about this, having read the entire book, I have to say, especially for the adults here, You know what I noticed, Vinita, is that what you're telling us very often, and I think this is so subversive also, is the fear isn't with the supernatural. What's really scary are human beings.
Don't you think so? Aren't human beings terrifying?
And that actually made my flesh crawl in a way that no amount of boo in white cloaks would do. So again, I would think that the adults here would absolutely love it, as would the young adults who are already
you're going to
aware.
read a bit about this, the book? Because I think,
No, I don't think so.
It's not age
No.
appropriate. I don't
it's
all
want
of
to.
them are small.
We'd rather have the questions because there are loads of. Yeah, there's one right in front. Yeah.
And then after there's one more hand there.
So,
Yeah. And here, there's a question here.
your rabbit.
From our very first member of the audience, we must take that question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Vinita, because you spoke about that, the Dark Tales is based on Nirbhaya and Nithari case. So when you hear such cases, they kind of engulf you. Like you kind of, go into a vortex kind of a situation. How do you find that space to come out of it and then spin a tale and add your own layers to it? I mean, just you're saying
What a
so.
fab question. Wow. Okay, so I do find that writing with it helps me deal with it. For me, that is, writing is very healing at some level. And I also find that when you write, then you understand what you actually think about it. For me, I think in writing. But yes, writing is my mainstay. It's my therapy. It's my joy. It's my adventure. Writing has given me so much happiness. And I really want to say to all of you here, it doesn't have to be writing, but if there's any creativity in your life, please hold on to it. There's nothing in the world that says you only have to be a mother or you only have to be someone who's got a job. You can combine the two. In Goa, we have somebody I really admire. He's an ACP of police, and every year he releases an album of songs that he sung. He's a singing policeman. It's fantastic. No matter what job you're stuck in, it doesn't matter. Make a little space for your creativity. Your creativity fills the well inside you. You can't keep drawing water from the well to give other people unless you fill it. So please, keep being creative. It's joy.
Lovely. And maybe have the question from you,
Okay,
please.
there and then
No,
there.
because she's really patiently been putting up her hand.
No,
for
let's
a long-
ask,
Okay,
darling.
yeah,
Let
yeah.
her ask. Oh, okay. You're after this, promise, okay?
What book do you don't like?
What book I don't like? Okay, I don't like books that have morals and tell me how to do things. All the books that teachers love, I don't love.
That makes two of us.
I think every book has a teaching to give you, but when the book wags its finger and tells you like this, nobody's listening. It's much better to write books that entertain children thoroughly and then they make them think. Books that touch your mind and your heart really work. Books that wag their finger at you and say, this is wrong and that is right. Oh my God, I run away from them. Yes, sweetie, ask.
What was the magician's name?
You have to tell me that. Mega balele aguntung kinki maga. Okay, we've got a hand here.
What is your favorite book?
Ooh, I get asked this all the time. So all the kids in the audience, you have brothers and sisters? Yep. Okay, so when you ask Mama, who do you love more, does Mama tell? I had a sister and Mama used to say, Mere dono meethe. So like that, you love all your books, they're all your children, so you love them all. And the youngest child normally gets the most attention, so it's normally the newest book that gets the attention. But having said that, I have to tell you a story. So I've come here from the Chandigarh Lit Fest and I asked the same thing. Does everyone have brothers and sisters? All hands went up. And when you ask Mama who loves who more, does she say? One little fellow said, Miss, my sister and I asked my mother, who do you love more? And she said, I love the dog.
I love this.
And I thought of this harassed mother, absolutely fed up thing. I love the dog.
I love that. Yeah, the thing about favorites, if I might ask you as a writerly question, is that do you ever feel, as you move away from the earlier books to the newer ones, when you go back to the older ones, do you sometimes, how do you feel about the older ones?
I think I'm supposed to feel that, oh, I could have done this better, but I don't actually. Because writing is a journey, and it's a meandering journey. Sometimes you write a good book, sometimes you write a mediocre book. But you were that person when you were writing that book, and I look back on my books and I see the person I was at that time, how much, the lessons I knew at that time. That's how I knew to write. Also, my books all tend to be issue-based, though they're all very funny, or I entertain. But every single one talks about things that really matter to me. So I always look back with fondness at the fact that I stood up for something through that book. So I try not to judge them, and we're so judgmental about creative work. I really think we should stop. This is good, that is bad, this was better, that was... creative work is not there to be judged. So, yeah.
No, in fact, this very light touch on very difficult, hard and heavy, potentially heavy subjects is, I think, such a wonderful way in which you take the person with you, no? And I think that's it's a very rare gift, because one tends to get either didactic or preachy or moralistic. So, and none of those things you will ever find in one of your works. I don't know whether anybody else has any other questions.
So there's one other book I'd like to mention actually.
Yes.
So this is not my only collection of ghost stories. There's a collection of ghost stories for adults called Wash of the Dead. And when I was in my 20s, I discovered feminism. And I got really fired up and I wanted to convert the whole world. But I said, there's no point giving them lectures. You have to sneakily get them to listen. So I wrote a collection of short stories. They're all ghost stories, but each one of them actually touches a feminist issue. So this has been my mantra in life. You want to get someone to think, entertain them. And the book I read to you from was Dungeon Tales, and Dungeon Tales Part 2 is out. Okay. So Part 2, I think, is one of the funniest books I've written, and mamas and papas here, if you want a quick feminist manifesto, this is the one. If you want to explain to your daughter, your son, what the issues are, and the difference between men and women and how women are treated. Very funny stories and a conversation on feminism, because this is a feminist manifesto.
Oh, lovely is that. Okay, listen, I do believe that 2 of these are free giveaways. So is there a particular...
Yes.
There's a question here.
Yeah, quickly.
Purple glasses, yes. Tell us. Wait, like that.
Hang on.
What is the scariest book you wrote?
Scariest book you wrote?
Well, I must say the one which was Feminist Ghost Stories, because that again is based on real life stories. Every morning you open a paper and you see what's been done to women. So as a woman in India, I find that terrifying, and I don't think that's changed. So those are the scariest stories that I've written. I would not recommend the children read it, but certainly if you're a woman and you're an adult, yes. Okay, so we have some more questions.
Yeah. Go ahead. This is lovely because...
Good morning. I am a mother of 2 young children under 6, and I am a very strict mother. Like, so strict that I sometimes hate myself. But I'm also hoping that someday I would write a children's book. So how do I loosen up?
What a lovely question. Yeah, no, being a mom is so scary. You never know whether you're doing it right. Well, you never know whether you're being too tough or you're being too easy. I'm a mom. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and it's been quite an adventure. I think one of the ways to loosen up is to not be with the kids. When you're with the kids, you're always a mum. You go into mum mode. And I think every mother in this audience, you deserve 2 hours off a week at least. A daily, yes. Daily 2 hours. You need some me time. And the only time you can loosen up is in the me time, when you can be me. You can be yourself. You can remember you're a woman. You can put on lipstick. You can, hang out in the bathroom for 1 hour. You can read if you want to. Please make some me time. We deserve it. Women hold up the world. And from time to time, we deserve to put down the world for a little while. And if possible, do it every damn day.
And I must add, because I've been observing when you said that you're a very strict mother, and then immediately after your little daughter went and gave you this gigantic hug. So I think you're doing something right. Perhaps you found a balance that you don't really realize. May I just quickly respond to that second part about how do I write? You loosening up, yes, but children's book. Do you want to answer that part? Because I think it's very interesting. How does one write children's books? Because I often get asked this because I write for adults as well as children. And people always assume it's a different hat you put on. So maybe you want to talk about that a little?
Actually, I don't know how to write children's books. every book I write is for my inner child. You know, I write books, full stop, and sometimes they're for children, and sometimes they're not. And sometimes you think you're writing for children, and you discover, oh my, this is not really a children's book. So I think the important thing is don't put a label on it, sit down and write. And then see what it turns out to be. Because until you write, you don't even know what author you are. It wasn't until my third or fourth book that I started to figure out what kind of author I actually was. So do it. In the doing is the learning.
You know, we should be making T-shirts with all your sayings and selling them in the Really, no, I'm not even being facetious. Luckily, this entire session is being recorded, so we can replay it and we can remember. Because a lot of it is really worth remembering. More questions? Yeah, there. Yeah.
It's kind of a personal question, but since your surname stands for a rabbit, do you connect to the animal in any way?
You know, at the height of having animals, I had 14 dogs and 3 cats. We are now down to 3 dogs, unfortunately. So, my God, I connect to animals. How I connect to animals? I've written 3 books which are based on my love for animals. So, you know, I love animals greatly. It started with a dog that came home, one little puppy. I didn't know better, so I got a breed at that point. She was a Cocker Spaniel. Her name was Kajri, and I got her and I fell in love. And I loved her so much that I started feeling really guilty about eating other animals. So I became vegetarian. I was like, you can't love one animal and eat another animal. And then at one point I looked around me and we treat animals so badly. We beat them, we whip them, we eat them. We treat them like they have no sentience whatsoever. And I was so mad. I have to speak up about this. It made me really, really angry, and I wrote a series of 3 books. There's Tiger by the Tail, Dead as a Dodo, and Monkey See, Monkey Do. And I said, what if animals fought back? What if animals got trained? What if they were like James Bond? What if they got gadgets and they fought back? So those 3 books are animals fighting back. It's James Bond, the animals have gadgets, and in every book they go on a mission. And each mission tackles a particular issue. So one of the issues that's tackled is animal testing. Another issue that's tackled is extinction. You know that we're in the middle of the largest extinction that's ever happened in the world. You remember the dinosaurs? We're in the middle of an extinction that's about 6 times the size of the dinosaurs. Every day, more than 120 species go extinct every day. And there's only one animal that's responsible for this. That animal is us. So yeah, so those books tackle that entire range, and if you love animals, those are the books that you should try and read.
Should we start wrapping up?
Do we have time, or do we wrap up?
Because let us know, because this is really a marvelous adda, really.
Is this working?
Yes.
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's an absolutely marvelous session, and there's so many questions and so much of interest. And Vinita, you really, I think you're a rock star.
I'm a
she's
Nautanki.
rock star.
When I was a kid, I used to be called Nautanki, so it lasted.
Yeah, so it's actually excellent. I mean, I think all the sessions we've had with Anushka. Absolutely, it's absolutely.
You know, I
part of
actually
the
do
storytelling.
teach storytelling. One of the things I do is I work with librarians. There's a marvelous bookstore in Goa called Bookworm. So every year they truck in a bunch of librarians and I go in there and I teach them how to tell stories. So it is spreading. And there are 2 things I do. One is I teach them storytelling. And since last year what we've started is we do a session on the Constitution of India and how to make children understand what the spirit of it is. And on the 26th, I am doing one such session with a bunch of librarians.
Wonderful. You're going to do a session for the Seeking Mind later on. I'll make sure. Okay, so any more questions?
That actually is online and it's open to everyone. So if you search Bookworm and Vinita Coelho, which will pop up, and please just, because we're also going to be suggesting books that allow you to then have that conversation with your kids. It's an important conversation to have.
So
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No, I just want to say thanks to you, Vinita, in a formal way, because thank you for keeping the faith in the craft alive, and most importantly, thank you for being able to communicate this so clearly and so passionately and so lovingly with so much spark to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have 3 books, and I wish I could give every single one of you a book, but unfortunately I can't. I've just carried 3.
We will
organize some chocolates because it's a lovely group which has come in on the
Ah.
23rd and it's a holiday
Okay.
today.
So everybody else
And
gets
thank you so
chocolates.
much,
Some
Vinita.
kids get books. So you definitely get a book, darling. There you go. And our very first patient, she was here dot at 10 o'clock. There you go, darling. I have one last one left. Okay. Oh my God, this is such a difficult decision.
Okay, you can put up your hands
Oh, everybody wants one. I don't know who to give it to. Okay, I'm going to give it here because this is a budding author. And I think budding authors must be encouraged. I'm encouraging the competition. Damn.
Thank you so much, Vinita, Sampurna. It's been 2 sessions. I know it's been a little hectic for you. But we are really, really happy that you're here in Calcutta. Of course, I know. Yes, of course. So there will be a book signing, but I just want to find out. So in 15 minutes, they will be there at the Mohar Kunj, right, where the